Good evening, doctor. My name is Feng Meifang, and today I will be presenting my individual assessment on quantitative methodology in environmental sustainability research. This presentation will cover the three academic papers, each addressing carbon emission from different perspectives using quantitative analysis as their core research method. So I will describe it from these 5 aspects. Okay, let's begin with a quick overview of the context. The sustainable development refers to development that meets current needs without compromising future generations. It's rooted in the triple bottom line: environmental protection, economic growth, and social equality. So, today's most pressing environmental issue include the climate change, with global temperature rising by 1.1 degrees since pre-industrial times. The second is the biodiversity loss, where extinction rates are up to 1,000 times the natural background rate. And the third is the pollution, with 8 million tons of plastic entering oceans annually, and the percentage of the pollution exposed to unsafe air. So this is the line chart about the global temperature change. You can see it's rise. To address this, we rely on solutions such as renewable energy, circular economic principles, and ecosystem conservation. And the sustainable development is the only way out for environmental issues, requiring multi-party collaboration and innovative technology. So this is my conclusion about the PPT about the teacher's class. I conclude the quantitative research methods we learned. So to address this, we rely on solutions such as renewable energy, circular economic principles, and ecosystem conservation. But to truly understand the impact of different actions and policies, we need the quantitative research methods. So the focus of this presentation. Okay, next I will talk about the summary of the first paper. The first paper is the child openness and carbon emission. This is the information about the first paper. You can search it. Okay, the objective is about the first paper is to explore how trade openness impacts carbon emission in China, including its underlying mechanism, knowledge effects, and spectral pillars. The research methods is the descriptive research. It describes the current situation of carbon emission, trade opening, environmental regulation, and other provinces. So we're using the data from 30 provincial administrative regions and the annual trends and regional distribution characteristics of variables such as trade openness, carbon emission levels, environmental regulations, industrial structure, and education levels are described. The another method is the correlational research. So the paper adopts quantitative research methods. It collates and analyzes numerical data and establishes causal relationship between variables and testing using preset statistical models. So what variables have been investigated and studied? The one is the continuous variables. So the definition of the continuous variables is can take on an infinite number of values within a given range. They can on a scale and can represent quantities. So in this paper, the continuous variables are the carbon emissions and the trade openness and the economic scale and the education level. You can see the definition about these variables and the data source in this table. Okay, the another variables is the categorical variables. The definition of the categorical variables is the represent the distinct categories or groups. They can be nominal or ordinal. So the categorical variables in this paper is the industrial structure and the hot dependency ratio. So you can see the definition of these variables and its characteristics in this table. I conclude it. Okay, the data survive methods and the processing methods. The paper did not use a questionnaire but was collected using secondary data. It's a common method. So the step is first way data collection to data processing to model construction to visualization. Okay, the model description about the paper 1. We're using the spectral doping model. We analyze the impact of trade opening on local and neighboring provinces on carbon emissions. The formulation is listed. You can see it. Next, the key findings about this. First, the trade openness generally reduces the emission, supporting the pollution, and however, it can increase emission via scalar effects, especially in aging regions, and a significant spectral effect exists. Province trade opening can not only reduce local carbon emissions, but also reduce carbon emission in surrounding areas. So we have some policy suggestions. First, we should adjust the export structure and strengthen the environmental regulations and promote the green technologies, especially in aging areas. Okay, next is the summary of the second paper. The paper 2 is the green supply chain management and the renewable energy. This is the information about the second paper. You can research it in the internet. So the objective is about the second paper. The study aims to investigate how green supply chain management and renewable energy consumption affect carbon emission in China and India, incorporating the rules of financial development and foreign direct investment. The research methods. One of the methods is the descriptive research. It describes the distribution, changing trends of variables and describe the real estate. And using the quarterly data from China and India between these years, and the trend analysis and the statistical descriptions are conducted on carbon emissions, renewable energy use, and so on. The another method is the correctional research. The causal correlation between the following variables was analyzed using nonlinear regression model. About these variables, the effects to the COR, and its comparison of the marginal effects difference between China and India, and conducting panel data analysis of the two countries. So what variables have been investigated and studied? The first is the continuous variables. In this paper, the continuous variables is the carbon emission and renewable energy consumption, and the GDP per capita, and the domestic credit to private sector, and the foreign direct investment inflow. So you can see the variables and the definition and the data source in this table. The analyze the structural variables. It's the characteristic and its usage. Next, the data service methods and the processing methods is the paper did not use a questionnaire but was collected using a secondary data. It's the paper 1. So the step is from data collection to data processing to modeling approach to visualization tools. And I conclude its description and the knowledge about the class in this table. Okay, the key finding. I conclude these variables and its effect on carbon emission between China and India. So we can find that, surprisingly, neither GSCM nor REC effectively reduce emission, possibly due to underdeveloped infrastructure and limited policy enforcement, and the financial development and FDI have mixed effects depending on country context. Under the model use, we can see the main models is the kernel regularizes list scorers. So we conclude that the policymakers should enhance green technology implementation, guide financial flows toward low carbon sectors, and promote more impactful renewable energy transition. We should invest in green technology and redirect financial support to low carbon sectors and strengthen the institutional capacity in both countries. Next, the summarizes of the third paper. This is the information about the third papers. You can research it in the internet. The paper 3 is the e-commerce and the carbon emission. The objective is to investigate whether the development of e-commerce in China helps reduce CO2 emissions, and it also explores the mediating mechanism and the regional heterogeneity in this relationship. So the research method is the descriptive statistic. It displays the variables distribution using descriptive statistics, and heat map report descriptive statistics for our variables. It describes the relationship between e-commerce development and carbon dioxide emissions. And the another is the heterogeneity analysis. Its methods grouped samples by region or are the standards and the requisite separately to observe the difference in the effect of variables in different groups. So we can say the operation in this paper is divided 30 provinces into 3 groups. Under the 10 eastern province and the 20 province in the central and the western regions. The results show that the effect of e-commerce on emission reduction is more significant in the eastern region. And we use the data analysis. So the finding is that the e-commerce significantly inhibits carbon emission and it reduces the energy intensity. The technological innovation effects the carbon emissions and the e-commerce in the eastern region has stronger effects on emissions reduction, while central and western regions are slightly weaker. This is the models used. It uses the system GMM used for dynamical panel depth modeling to solve individual problem. So the formula is this. You can see the results show that the eastern e-commerce industry has the strong green efficiency, reflecting resource concentration and technological advantages. So the summary is the e-commerce significantly reduced CO2 emissions in China, especially in eastern province. Okay, finally we see the summary. Let's now compare the 3 studies in terms of methodology and the findings. I conclude it in this table. The paper 1 focuses on tried openness, and the method is spectral doping model. And the paper 2 is focused on the GSCM and the REC. The method is the KRLS regression. The paper 3 is the e-commerce, and the method is the system mediation. So, despite difference, all 3 use the secondary data from empirical modeling and applied advanced statistical tools to address complexity and causality, and they emphasize their policy relevance based on their finding. But the different strategies in China is optimizing green supply chain management, and in India it focuses on rice renewable energy share. So, to conclude, the quantitative methods are not just tools for analysis. The choice of methods must align with the data and the policy question, whether it's through spectral models, no-linear regression, or dynamic panel analysis. These studies illustrate how data-driven research can shape a more sustainable future. Okay, thank you for your attention. I'm happy to take any question. Thank you, doctor.